Coming up on Locked On Dodgers. Dodgers made a trade, not a big trade, but a trade to talk about some news about potential free agent stuff. We'll talk about the Giants' moves in quote unquote free agency, even though it's just their own guys. And then we'll talk about Seiya Suzuki coming over from Japan and how that might affect the Dodgers. So, a lot to get to. So, let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. I am Jeff Snider of Baseball Essential. That is Vince Samperio of Chavez Ravine Fiends, and this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. And Vince, it's nice to be back together. It seems like lately, between the offseason, no games to talk about, and our busy schedules, we've been doing more split episodes and solo episodes, but it's always fun when I get to talk to you face to face.
Yeah, man, we were so adamant about it during season. I think we're both enjoying the off season a little bit on our personal ends, but like you said, always glad to be together, and hopefully that happens here more often in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. But, in the season, like you said, we probably will continue to have, it's nice to have a day or two off each week. And we're going to keep bringing you episodes 5 days a week, all off season long, even though, there's no games to talk about. And so you'll have Dodger stuff every weekday morning where we get podcasts or here on YouTube. And sometimes it'll be just Vince, sometimes just me, sometimes split. And sometimes, like right now, we'll be talking to each other. So the Dodgers made a trade on Monday. We knew that roster moves were coming because Zach Reks and Billy McKinney had both been designated for assignment to make room on the 40-man roster for the guys you talked about on yesterday's episode, Vince. But when a guy's DFA'd, we still don't know their ultimate fate because sometimes they end up getting claimed on waivers. Sometimes they get traded, and sometimes they just end up clearing waivers and getting outrighted back to the minors and stay in the organization. That happens sometimes. In this case, it did not happen with friend of the show, Zach Reks, and cousin Billy, who I call cousin Billy because my grandma was a McKinney, and so I assume we're related. So Zach Reks and Billy McKinney were both traded in the same trade to the Texas Rangers for cash, which basically means they were sold, except we're not allowed to talk about human beings that way. But their contract status was sold to the Rangers, and now they are in the Rangers organization with DJ Peters and Dennis Santana and Willie Calhoun and about 1,000 other guys, right? It's like seems like
Josh Boers and one of the other trades from the Darvish, one of the other guys.
Yeah. So back in the 60s, it used to be a joke that the Royals were a minor league system for the Yankees. They would bring up guys and then eventually trade all their good players to the Yankees. And it seems like the Dodgers are the same for the Rangers, except the opposite. They're trading the guys who, hopefully have it. We saw DJ Peters, he did okay once he got a chance to play regularly. He had some highlights. He still didn't hit super well, but he hit some home runs, made some plays and got some love. And so it's like the guys who maybe aren't ready to play for a team that's trying to win the World Series, but are good enough to be in the big leagues. And I think that description is pretty accurate for both Zach Reks and Billy McKinney at this point in time, and maybe not ready to be on a World Series contender, but ready to play in the big leagues.
Yeah, Billy McKinney, I mean, he is what he is at this point. He's not really a prospect. He can get on base at a decent clip, but can't do much else beyond that. He had some versatility playing first and outfield, but ultimately was really only there because of injuries and some luck, I guess. Zach Reks was one that, climbed the ranks real high, had a cool story, and, we talked to him last year, and, someone you wanted to succeed, at least on our end specifically, but, just in general, he seemed like a nice guy, and like I said, had a cool story and does all these things, and, pick coffee beans in Hawaii, and, wanted to become a barista or own this. I forget exactly what the story was, but a lot with coffee and other stuff, and didn't work out, but hopefully he'll go over there and get some playing time and get his first major league hit. That's really what I'm rooting for at this point, because he got, I think, 10 at-bats with the Dodgers last year, but wasn't quite able to get that first hit. And I hope that he sticks around in the majors long enough to get that first hit, because I know that that's something that's pretty big.
Yeah, between this podcast and our old podcast, you and I have had the opportunity to talk to a lot of really cool guys who have eventually played for the Dodgers. Usually we talk to them when they're in the minors, a couple exceptions. Charlie Culberson we talked to after he hit that big home run in 2016. I think Matt Beatty we talked to both before and after he had made the big leagues, but a lot of times before. And, Zach Reks was one of the nicest guys we've talked to, so yeah, nothing but wish nothing the best for him, nothing but the best, because yeah, I think he can hit. And, he never really got a chance to, get that chance with the Dodgers, and the chances he got, he struggled. And so hopefully new atmosphere, maybe even get some starts, maybe even a starting position for a little while. And hopefully he can show that he can hit and have some success there in Texas, maybe even better than DJ Peters did.
Yeah.
One other bit of Dodgers related news, we talked about StephenMats last week, about him as a potential target for the Dodgers in free agency. And there was an interesting report from John Heyman on Monday. He said that basically that a few people reported that Matz was likely to sign a contract soon. And Heyman said Red Sox, Blue Jays, Tigers, Cubs, Cardinals, Giants, Angels, and Mets are among the teams in on StephenMats. Deal could come soon. And interestingly, that's 8 teams listed, and the Dodgers are not one of the teams that was listed. He did say among the teams in on StephenMats, and you never know where these reporters are getting their information. Don't know what, so maybe that's just the 8 that Heyman could think of off the top of his head that he's heard buzz about, or maybe it was actually somebody feeding him that list of 8 teams. We don't really know, and that's kind of part of the both the pro and the con of the baseball Twitter news breaking world. Is we really have to go on with these reporters is track record. And so who knows how accurate that list is, but it was interesting to not see the Dodgers on the list, I thought.
Yeah, unless Matz is a Boris client, then we know exactly who those team names came from. But yeah, I mean, it might be a matter of it got a little too, not to say the Dodgers are going poor, but a little too rich for their blood. Maybe teams are offering more years or more money than the Dodgers thought. They got Andrew Heaney pretty cheap. StephenMats probably was going to be a little bit more expensive than that anyways. We'll talk a little bit later about the Giants moves, but they brought back 2 pitchers that were pretty good last year for one probably cheaper than I thought, and one maybe a little not more expensive, but just not money the Dodgers would be giving out to a pitcher of that caliber right now. So maybe that's where it's at. Maybe they swoop in and sign him. Who knows? But yeah, he would have been an interesting name. Would have brought another lefty into the fold. But as we've seen from before from Friedman, there could be a surprise move or two here in the coming weeks before the potential lockout.
Yeah, I think interesting is the main word we can use for this, because neither you or I really have a strong opinion on whether the Dodgers should sign StephenMats. And it's one of those things that, if they do, then we'll assume that they see something in him, kind of like with Andrew Heaney, like you said. So yeah, we're going to come back in a minute. Speaking of people the Dodgers might sign, we're going to talk about Seiya Suzuki, who is being posted by his Japanese club around the time you're listening to this. And we'll talk about what that might mean for the Dodgers. So keep it locked on Dodgers. It's Thanksgiving, and we all know what that means. Football. And nothing goes better with football than turkey and betting. BetOnline has you covered all holiday season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this Thanksgiving. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus with promo code LOCKEDON. It's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline. We're stuffed with deals this Thanksgiving. Hey, does this sound familiar? You got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you just texted Vince to see if he has an NBA League Pass password so you can watch the Jazz game. Maybe that was just me. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. And now we're back to talk more Dodgers, or in this case, guys who may or may not eventually be Dodgers. Seiya Suzuki is probably the best player in NPB, the Japanese Baseball League, right now. And he is being posted. He's 27 years old, 26. He's going to be 27 anyway in the 2022 season. And so kind of in his prime, and he's being posted. And this one, the last time there was, a lot of people remember the Shohei Ohtani posting and how the Angels got him for almost nothing. And this one's going to be different because this one is a true posting. Ohtani, when he was posted, he was not a free agent. He was still what they consider, I think they called it I can't remember the wording, but because he hadn't been in NPB long enough, he couldn't just be posted and come over to the major leagues as a true free agent. He would have had to stay another year or two in Japan before he could qualify for that. And so teams were not allowed to sign him to a big free agent contract. He was treated for MLB purposes as an international free agent. And so there's limits on what they can spend and all that. With Seiya Suzuki, that does not apply. He is a true free agent. So when he's posted, he will come over and teams will be able to outbid each other. With Ohtani, it was basically, okay, everybody can offer you the same amount of money. So which team do you want to go to? And so teams all did their sales pitches to Ohtani, but none of them involved, hey, we will pay you a crap load of money, because they were all paying him the exact same amount of money. With Suzuki, a big part of the sales pitch is going to be, hey, we've got a lot of money. Would you like a lot of it? And, and so Suzuki, I don't know if you've read up much on Seiya Suzuki at all, Vince, but he's pretty exciting. Like he's a great hitter. His swing, I've watched quite a bit of video of him. His swing looks a lot like Mike Trout's. And I don't know if you know much about baseball, but swinging like Mike Trout is about the best thing you can do in baseball. He doesn't strike out much. He walks a lot. He walks more than he strikes out, or at least as much as he strikes out most seasons. Has a ton of power, has a great arm in the outfield. He's 5'11", 216 pounds, but they say he's quick enough to play center field. And so, he's an outstanding athlete. Sounds like he's kind of a bodybuilder, kind of built like Tyler O'Neill a little bit. I so far I've said swings like Mike Trout and built like Tyler O'Neill, and those honestly are the two nicest compliments I can think of to say about anybody. So do I have you hyped up, Vince?
You do have you hyped up, because I have not done any research or looked at Suzuki at all, and now I want him on the Dodgers. So a good sell job for sure. But just in general, the Dodgers could use another outfielder. It wouldn't necessarily be a guaranteed starting spot, because we know Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, AJ Pollock would theoretically hold those spots at the moment. But as we saw last year, that the more talent you have on your 40-man roster or on your 26-man roster, the better. And getting this guy into the organization would obviously make them better from top to bottom. So I'm sold on that end. Do the Dodgers need an outfielder particularly? No. But as we've seen before, when some of these guys come over, they're not necessarily ready for an everyday role. They do have to catch up and get used to velocity, get used to, just different style, different lifestyle, different everything. So bringing in a guy like that, similar to Kim that the Padres got last year, he didn't come in and be an everyday guy. He never really quite got the bat going, but, he probably got less playing time than he thought. And then the Padres ended up trading for another infielder during the season, so that didn't help too much. But, yeah, it's a guy that, like I said, can improve your roster. He's probably better than Luke Raley is at this point. And, that's a spot on the 40-man roster that he could take it potentially, I guess.
Yeah, and I assume that he's going to sign with somebody who is going to guarantee him a starting spot, or at least give him a very good chance at that. And I think that could be the Dodgers, assuming they're going to have the DH, which, we haven't really heard many leaks about specifics of going on with the current negotiations. And maybe that's because everybody's just resigned themselves to a lockout starting next week. But, the National League is going to have the DH next year. And so that opens up a spot, whether it's, AJ Pollock playing some DH. The challenging part is that Pollock and Suzuki are both purely outfielders, but with Bellinger, they could have Bellinger play first base once in a while. If Suzuki really can't hold down center field, great, let him play center field once in a while. Mookie could play second base once in a while, even, so they've got some positional flexibility there. Adding in that DH spot for another hitter, if any team can make this happen with, and we've actually seen the Dodgers do this in the past. The Dodgers had Andre Ethier and Matt Kemp and Carl Crawford and Yasiel Puig at the same time. And there was no DH. And, most of the time those, unfortunately, those roster crunches were solved by one or more of them was hurt all the time. I think they only had a couple of weeks where all four of them were actually healthy at the same time. And those were the weeks that led to Matt Kemp getting disgruntled about not playing where he wanted to and eventually getting traded. But, the Dodgers will make room for a guy like this if they determine that that's a guy they want. And offensively, a right-handed hitter who, I don't know. I'm really excited about him. You need to go watch the video. Those of you listening or watching this right now, I wish we were allowed to just pop some video of him up in the YouTube here, but YouTube is big on their whole copyright stuff, and we don't want to get banned from YouTube. But go look at some highlights of Seiya Suzuki. He's got a ton of power and just a beautiful, short, quick, simple swing. And there's also some highlights of him throwing guys out at the from right field. They say he's got a 70 grade arm. He was actually a pitcher coming out of high school, and he almost got drafted as a pitcher. I don't think he has any designs on being a two-way player like Ohtani, but he's got a great arm. So all in all, I'm a pretty big believer in you make room for the best players. And, if Suzuki wants to come to the Dodgers, I think it's a guy you make room for him, whether that's switching guys around positionally and using that DH, or whether it's, maybe selling high on AJ Pollock, or, I don't know. I know that AJ Pollock is such a polarizing figure in Dodger fandom. And you and I think mostly fall on the same end of the spectrum with regard to AJ Pollock, Vince. But, if I'll put it this way, I expect Seiya Suzuki to have a better season than AJ Pollock in 2022.
Yeah, AJ Pollock is in similar but different territory than we had Jock Peterson, where sell high, and then he ended up taking it around to the end of his contract. So, I'm not maybe at that point with Pollock, but like I said, if it means bringing in a top tier talent or a better talent, we've talked about Marte so far this year. We've talked about other guys, or even Marcus Semien, and maybe bringing Taylor and Semien back in different ways of moving people around. But yeah, if it means top tier talent coming to the Dodgers, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And all of this, every free agent move, a lot of this that we're talking about depends on what Corey Seager does, what Chris Taylor does, like you said, what Marcus Semien does. But a lot of free agent lists I've seen kind of ranking the free agents basically have Suzuki as the third best outfielder available, behind only Starling Marte and Nick Castellanos. So that's kind of where people have him fitting in. And defensively, he's definitely better than Castellanos. But all right, so we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about some moves the Giants made, basically getting the band back together, other than the old man band leader who decided to retire. But other than that, the Giants are bringing back a lot of the old guys. So we're going to talk about that, who the specifics are, and what that might mean for the Dodgers. So keep it locked on Dodgers. All right, so let's talk about the Giants, Vince. They re-signed Anthony DeSclafani on Monday, and then there was word shortly after that they are close to re-signing Alex Wood. At the time that we're recording this on Monday night, the Alex Wood signing isn't official yet, but it sounds like that's going to happen. So bringing back DeSclafani and Wood, I don't know if we ever talked about the fact that Brandon Belt accepted the qualifying offer, so he's coming back to the Giants. They signed Brandon Crawford to an extension during the season, and so basically their team next year, other than Buster Posey, and as of right now, Kevin Gausman, is going to look very similar to last year's team. And I don't know if you remember, but last year's team actually ended up being pretty good. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on all the Giants coming back?
It's mixed feelings because you can be like, oh man, like they're really gonna run it back. Like they're really expecting, obviously they can make other moves, but they haven't really been linked to any of the big name shortstops. Alex Castellanos has been a guy they've been kind of thrown into just because of who he is and what they need, but hasn't necessarily been linked. Even Chris Bryant hasn't really been linked back to them. So for me, it's like, oh, if that's what you want to do, if you want to count on Brandon Crawford repeating what he did, if you want to count on Brandon Bell repeating what he did, if you want to count on DeSclafani and Alex Wood repeating what they did, I'm more than fine with that. The flip side is, what if they do repeat what they did? It's pretty hard to win 107 games 2 years in a row. Not even the Dodgers have done that. They've done it. They've never won 107 games, but they've won, 104 plus in 2 of 3 years. So it's possible. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where what is Aidi thinking, or what does he have in mind? You're kind of thinking that way. What do they see? What do they think? It's one of those where the aura of Zaidi and their now player development system, can they sustain it? We heard this and thought about this with the Dodgers when Chris Taylor became really good, when Justin Turner was good, when different guys have come up and were legit players and helped the Dodgers to all those playoff appearances and NLCS and World Series appearances. So now this is kind of on their side now. Can they sustain this? Can they, will Alex Wood be good again? Will DeSclafani be good again? I don't know. But it's a matter of just kind of thinking. For me, I'd much rather have them do this than go out and get actual like top tier talent that costs a lot of money. Because even though in the back end of that it might hurt, in the front end of that it might help out if they were to get like a top tier player and pitcher. So I'm cool with it.
It's an interesting approach because a lot of it depends on, did they actually overperform this last season? Because if so, bringing back the same team who's all just a year older, and by the way, one of your best hitters retired, and other than that, you're about the same team that overperformed last year. Go ahead and do it a second time in a row, except you're all a year older, and they weren't young to start with, and so if they did overperform, it is, it might be a fool's errand to try to repeat with the same team. So I think they are going to have to go after somebody. Just to clarify what you said, it's probably Nick Castellanos they're interested, not former Dodger Alex Castellanos.
Yeah,
But Alex Castellanos hasn't played in the big league since 2013, so he's
they
probably
should
not
sign
going
him.
to. Yeah, go for it. Come on, Farhan. But yeah, and so you would think they re-signed Brandon Crawford, so they're probably not going after one of the big shortstops, and so is it Castellanos in the outfield? And then we'll start getting into, well, is Lamont Wade for real? Is he going to have a sophomore slump, or whatever? All these guys who it seemed like they got contributions last year from some unexpected places, and they probably know better than you and I do if they think that those contributions were real or if they were fluky. But if they're just bringing back the same team, that seems, especially DeSclafani, who the Dodgers had plenty of success against. Nobody else really did, but I assume a lot of teams in the National League West will be watching a lot of video of the Dodgers' performances against DeSclafani to say, okay, how come they can hit him and we can't? And might be something that teams figure out. So it's I don't even know what to make of it as far as what this might mean for the Dodgers, other than none of it scares me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, to say it doesn't scare me after what happened this season, but at the end of the day, the Dodgers did beat them in the postseason. So when it really came down to it and it mattered, the Dodgers ended up coming out on top. Especially the only thing is that it's not costing them a lot so far. DeSclafani, $12 million a year for 3 years isn't terrible. Alex Wood, they said north of 10 million for 2 years, so he's about 5-6 million a year, probably a little bit more in incentives. Brandon Bell is probably a little bit high, 18 mil, but it's just 1 year. So at the end of the day, it's not a lot of money, and they can go after that big fish free agent or maybe make a big splash. Their farm system has really moved up in the last few years, and maybe they go out and make a Mookie Betts like trade. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried about it. Obviously, they bring back Gausman. Yeah, they'll have a solid rotation, but the Dodgers hit Gausman and DeSclafani and Alex Wood the regular season pretty well. They didn't hit them that great, or didn't hit Gausman and Wood that great in the postseason, but it ended up working out in their favor either way. And then I said the team too, Logan Webb, he looked good enough to where that might not be something that's hard to repeat for him. But I know we saw Michael Wacha destroy the Dodgers in the postseason, and he's never really been the same after that, or at least not sustained success. So it's very possible that he could regress a little bit as well.
Yeah, and I think the best news about this Giant stuff is that now we will continue to get to hear Rick Monday try to pronounce Anthony DeSclafani's last name. I have it recorded. I listen to it every once in a while. I may make it my text tone of Rick Monday saying Anthony DeSclafani. So, not even close, but, it's about what DeSclafani deserves. So I think that's about it. You got anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this one up, Vince?
If I'm not mistaken, the Padres are hiring a 27-year-old to be their hitting coach. I think that's what I read. So that's now I feel old.
Yeah, he's been one of the hitting coordinators or something with the Giants. So part of the coaching drain. And so, it's kind of maybe good news on both sides. Take away a coach from the Giants and maybe throw a guy into a position he's not ready for with the Padres. So it will be interesting to see how Manny Machado reacts to a guy younger than him as a hitting coach. So not that Machado is difficult or anything, but so
yeah. I'm gonna throw my hat into the hitting coordinator coach realm now.
Yeah,
just put it out there.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate you making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. For your second listen today, go ahead and check out Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. If you're not yet subscribed to Locked On Dodgers on YouTube and or wherever you get your podcasts, please go ahead and subscribe in all of those places now. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com. And our phone number, if you want to leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text, is 323-863-LOCK-5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.